Fáilte Rashco, Ireland AM. Now, it's a financial topic every couple has to face sooner or later. Joint bank accounts. Are they a smart move or a recipe for rows?
Joining us with their expert takes are money coach Galavan and financial advisor Paul Merriman. Thank you both so much for joining us on the show this morning. Now, the big question, Paul, do they matter that much, joint accounts?
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
They do. Well, there's loads of reasons. The main thing is that you want to have harmony when it comes to finances in a relationship, and especially if you're living together, and especially if you have children, because there's so many costs coming in and out of the family. So I think the joint account's a good idea. It doesn't mean that every penny has to go into the joint account or both salaries or income go in. It's more, I think, a base for all the family-related expenses to come from. So I think everyone should have their own independence in relation to money coming to their own bank account, but then you'd agree what the household costs are, the kids' costs, or whatever's going on, and then you take from that one place.
OK.
Is it purely practicality, or is it about trust as well, Paul?
It's about trust, but it's also, there's a little bit of a bigger picture. So once you talk about the joint account for the money, then you're talking about your joint kind of goals, like when do you want to retire, do you want to clear down the mortgage, where do you want to live? Like, there's so many things that your couples have to decide when it comes to personal finances. And I think if you can't agree to start with a joint account for all your living expenses, how are you going to talk or even agree all the major things that come? Like, this is the basics, isn't it? Like the basics is just a current account for everybody. So if you can't agree on that, I think you're setting yourselves up for probably a fall. But interestingly enough, I put an Instagram post up asking this morning. I was quite surprised. Only 75% of people said yes, they should have a joint account. 25% said no.
Because they want to hide their money.
Yeah.
Hide their money, Kel.
I was surprised by that.
But I suppose for couples with different incomes, it can be quite different as well, because, you know, if one's earning significantly more, should they divide the household expenses by percentage of income and stuff like that? So maybe in that way it might be better, or should everything just be 50-50 no matter what people are earning?
Oh, definitely, I would be a fan of the pro rata side of things, because people are at different parts in their career. They're at different parts of maybe child rearing, different places in their lives. And to go 50-50, and particularly if you've a new mortgage and it's a lot, that could really scupper the other one side of the relationship. So I would definitely be a fan of sitting down and going, OK, well, what do we have coming in? And then doing a pro rata piece, because someone might have chosen a career that doesn't pay as well as the other one, and that's not their fault. They could be amazing at that career, and they shouldn't have to be nearly penalised for it by going 50-50. Yeah. So definitely keep it as fair as you can, and pro rata is pretty much one of the fairest ways you can do it in that regard.
But you're still paying your fair share there. You coach people through a lot of financial habits. Where do you see more issues? Is it where couples keep things completely separate, or where they have joint accounts?
Honestly, I would see it more when it's completely separate. Now,
really?
That's not quite as clear-cut as you might think. So when people keep things totally separate, quite often, maybe one of the partners been married before, or there have been different relationships, or they have different money stories and money backgrounds. And some people are naturally a bit more secretive than others. So when things are entirely separate, and this does not mean that anybody who has an entirely separate account means that there's anything nefarious going on. It just potentially there's room for more communication. And potentially there's more room for, like Paul said, like even just for the bills. Just even for the day-to-day bills going out, and having that as an overlap. Because the Venn diagram of sharing expenses doesn't have to be the two circles totally overlapping, and it doesn't have to be the two ones separate. It can be very much whatever works for that couple. And over time, as the trust builds, they can maybe share more and more, but you never have to if you don't want to. And I would absolutely agree when Paul said, definitely have your own personal account. That's, even if it's just your own money to spend each month, that's a small amount of money that's just no questions asked. That's yours. You've earned that amount of money. And then the rest, you can have your own savings account, and then the rest can be put in to work jointly together to build whatever future you want or whatever you're looking for.
Paul, what are the red flags, though, if somebody, your significant other, is point blank refusing to have a joint account?
I'm getting the blame for this answer, not you.
Just
so
saying.
that's it.
No, your financial expertise is much required here.
I think when it comes to not wanting to have a joint account for those basic kind of family expenses, like the mortgage, the rent, or the food, the heat, feeding everyone, I don't understand why you wouldn't, to be fair. So I think that's actually a red flag for me. I think if somebody is saying, no, I'm not doing that, it's a red flag. I think the other part that people get into complications is, I'll pay the rent, you pay all the other expenses, and it just never...
A lot of couples do that, like I do the mortgage and you do everything else.
Yeah, and it kind of, although that might work out on a pro rata point of view, it can feel that somebody's doing a lot more physical work with their money. So someone's actually going getting the shopping every week, someone's actually going to pay the bill, someone has more direct debts coming out, like the mortgage was one payment, or rent's one payment. So it's not even down, from a psychology point of view, it's not even down to the actual amount of the pro rata. It's about how much time someone is actually spending money versus the other person. Right. So that's why that joint account works well from the psychology point of view, where you put all your expenses in and it comes out. So, yeah, I think the first red flag is that. But, you know, Kel made a very good point in relation to some couples will have past experiences. They might be in previous relationships. They might have money hangovers. They might have a previous property from the recession. We've seen everything, you know, when we do consultations. But we would say a lot of couples from before COVID-19, typically speaking, our consultations would be with one person in a work site that might come into the office. But since COVID-19, nearly all our consultations are couples because they have time and they spent more time talking about money during COVID-19. So before that, I would very rarely see a client's partner or spouse, like never. And now everyone comes in for joint consultations. So I think since COVID-19, financially, people are working together more.
Because it looks like it was a rainy day. Bad things can happen. We need to prepare for this.
Yeah, and they had time in COVID-19 to think about, OK, what would it look like if we did go back down home? What would it look like if we do retire early? And they also had time and they had laptops and everyone jumped on Zoom. Like before, we did about 500 to 600 consultations a week. Before COVID-19, we were doing maybe 10 to 15 online. Now everything's online. Everyone's so used to communicating through Zoom for consultations. So there's just been a massive movement and shift, I think, in couples and how they handle their finances. And then the rise of social media and influencers, whether they're in Ireland or whether they're overseas, a lot more, I find, younger couples are talking more about their finances, which I think is great. Yeah. But I do think the basic starts with the bank account and then that joint account, and then you build up to short, medium, long-term goals.
Okay. But it's the communication, isn't it, all the way through?
100%.
Yeah. Kel, what about, I always think financial compatibility is so important in a relationship, but you don't always get it. Sometimes you fall in love with someone and you just are different kind of spenders. How do you start that conversation? Because it's a very emotionally loaded topic.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so interesting what Paul was saying there, that he's seeing more and more couples. I'm seeing more and more couples coming to me just to figure out, well, how do they go about doing this? What are the signposts? And a huge amount of it, the initial conversation would be, well, one is a spender, one is a saver. And that can be a massive bone of frustration for both sides, because one is very much, we're only here once, and then the other one is here, well, yeah, we're only here once, so we need to make sure we're not worried about money.
Sounds a perfect couple to me. I spent all my money and you could say.
And do you know what? That's a more common dynamic than you think. But I would definitely, what happens is people come with different baggage, different history, different relationships, and you're trying to find that common ground because they do love each other and they do want to build this together. So definitely, whichever couple is more frustrated, that's usually the one that kind of bolts first, and that's the one I tend to see first. With that, they will say, oh, look, help me get them on board. But I would very much take the whole thing of, well, look, what's both your end goals? And get both of them sitting in front of me and go,
same page.
What are you looking for? Yeah. And for example, one would be, look, I need to get rid of whatever debt we have, and they'll have their things that are so important to them. And the other person might be, I need to stay travelling. I love travelling, or whatever it is, and that costs money. So then you sit down and go, well, how can you have both of those things? And that's where you start boxing really clever with money, actually, because it could be one, you do certain transactions that build up loyalty points for hotels, planes, whatever. And suddenly it becomes a really nice proposition of working together to get both.
Kel, Paul, thank you so much for joining us on the
Thanks
show
a million,
today.
guys.
Food for thought there, I have to say. Anyway, we'll take a short break. See you back here in 3.